Hello, everybody. I'm Bernie Goldberg. This is No BS Zone, and I'm here with the Renaissance man of the Rockies, John Daly. How are you, John?
Doing good, Bernie. Thank you.
Good. Let's start with the biggest story, not just of the week, but the biggest story to come down in a very, very long time. And that is this tentative peace in the Middle East, whether it's the end of a war or simply a ceasefire. It'll take a few days, a few months before we know that. But here on the No BS Zone, John and I have given you our honest opinions, and that's all they are, opinions about Donald Trump. I've said he's a narcissist. He's needlessly nasty and cruel, a very, very bad trait in a human being. He gets a lot of things wrong, sometimes intentionally, which means he lies. Those are my honest opinions. But on this peace that he achieved, largely his doing in the Middle East, he deserves our thanks and he deserves all the credit in the world. Donald Trump did this by force of the same personality we've often criticized. Only Donald Trump could get a coalition of Arab nations, coalition of European nations. Only Donald Trump could get Israel to back off and Hamas to back off. Hamas, by the way, didn't end this thing because they wanted peace. Hamas ended it because it had no better solution, because it had been isolated because Israel weakened Hezbollah and the Houthis and even Iran. How long this will last, if this is a real peace, as I say, we don't know. But give Donald Trump all the credit. He deserves it. John, you've written about this. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe he deserves praise for this. I think the Middle East, even going back to Trump's first term, is one area where he's had some real foreign policy successes. I said many times that I thought his Iran policy during the first term was actually quite good, definitely better than Obama's. I would say better than Biden's as well. I was very supportive of him bombing Iran's, and I know you were too, bombing the Iran's nuclear facilities a few weeks ago. And I couldn't be happier about the remaining hostages being released. I'm very skeptical, as you say, this is tentative, that Hamas will follow through with the other phases of the peace deal. There's already signs that they're not going to. But the release of the hostages is a very positive development, no matter how you look at it. I'll just add too, that, and you touched on this a little bit, but the component that really made this possible was the work of the IDF since October 7th. That's the Israel Defense Forces since October 7th, 2023. They have absolutely decimated Hamas and even Hezbollah. They've had huge wins against. Again, they set back Iran's nuclear program with our help from Trump. By potentially years. I still don't think we know just how long, but it's going to be a bit. And another important part of this has been that Arab countries in the Middle East, you talked about Hamas being isolated now, but these other countries have realized that, Iran is a threat to them as well, much more so than Israel. And they've been quietly working with Israel against Iran and these terrorist groups. Despite it's kind of interesting, they continue to publicly condemn Israel because they have to as part of sort of their cred, but they've been working with them behind the scenes. So this has all created this really positive environment that has been good for Israel, and I would say, the free world as well.
One of the conditions, one of the 20 points of Donald Trump's peace plan was that Hamas disarm. That's not happening, certainly as we speak. And whether it's ever going to happen is a question. I saw a video yesterday, and I'm shocked that it hasn't gotten more play, of Hamas lining up its enemies, people that it thought conspired or were too friendly to Israel or whatever their alleged sin was, put them on their knees and shot them in the back of the head. That was a video I saw that was happening this week. Hamas, as I say, didn't end this thing, at least even temporarily, because it wanted peace. It ended it because peace was the best solution it had at the moment. Now
And you said something so real quick, just interesting there that it had, you're right, those videos have not gotten much mainstream airplay. And I think there's a reason for it. Can you, if anybody in that region were victims of, Israel, the IDF, that would be huge, huge news. But now that Hamas is, going right after, people in its own region, there doesn't seem to be as much interest in that. It's
well,
sort of telling, I think.
where are the people who have been in the streets, the people from Columbia and Harvard and all the other progressives out there that have been in the streets demanding what? A ceasefire. Well, they have a ceasefire. They have what they demanded. Where are they? Because it was never about a ceasefire. It was about the elimination of the Jewish state of Israel. And that's not going to happen. Israel was born with a slogan, never again. And they're not going to let it happen. And those people that were out protesting and are not out saying anything now, shame on them. And Bernie Sanders and AOC, where are they? I haven't heard anything from them about this. Give Donald Trump credit. He deserves it. Let's move on to a subset of this topic. I ask with a smile on my face, John. You'll go first. Does Donald Trump deserve and will he receive the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, definitely not this time around, since it's already gotten out. But
next time around.
Right. So when people ask me that question, really of anybody, I haven't really been impressed with the Nobel Peace Prize in so long. I'm not even sure I cared about it before Barack Obama. Ridiculous.
You weren't impressed at Barack Obama?
No.
Got the Nobel Peace Prize for doing absolutely nothing, and he would acknowledge that, by the way.
Yeah, but he won it for just being Barack Obama, basically.
Right.
And he has acknowledged that to some extent. At the same time, I thought it would have been a kind of a powerful thing for him at the time to say, I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't accept this. There are other people more deserving of this. But he did take it.
Totally agree.
Yeah. But, with Donald Trump, I think the only reason this became such a big topic of public discussion is that Trump really, really wanted to win it. He was actively lobbying for it, and he had his surrogates and other supporters out there saying he should win it. This is before the peace deal. They were claiming that he had already stopped 7 or 8 wars since returning to office. I think it might even explain, I hope I'm wrong, that his at least rhetorical about face on Ukraine, he's done a little bit to back up what he's been saying lately, but I suspect that someone kind of at some point pulled him aside and said, Mr. President, if you're serious about wanting to win the Nobel Peace Prize, you should probably at least act like you care about what's going on in Ukraine instead of blaming Ukraine for what's happening. But the person who did win it, Maria Corina Machado, absolutely deserved it. So, she's been very heroic in her pro-democracy efforts in Venezuela. But again, we're talking about down the line. It's funny, and I know you. I feel like I was sucking up all the wind, but I did want to mention. So Jamie Weinstein, you're familiar with, Bernie. He interviewed you a few weeks ago for the Dispatch. He tweeted something I thought was pretty interesting. This is about a week ago. This is before the hostages have been released. But he said, if the hostages are released in coming days, Trump will deserve his coveted Nobel Peace Prize. He also deserved one for the Abraham Accords. He also deserved both of his impeachments. He's a complicated man.
Well, let me ask you, John. Yes or no? Does Donald Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize next time around?
If he gets it, I'm cool with it. If he doesn't get it, it's like saying, does he deserve something I don't care about?
Okay. Do you think he'll get it?
No. I think there's a lot of things stacked against him to begin with, just the type of people who are on the Nobel committee. But I don't think it's gonna be. I want to be optimistic about the future, of what goes on in this conflict. But I don't think the other steps are going to be abided by. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong in the peace deal. So I don't think things are going to look as optimistic next year. Maybe further down the road, who knows? But I don't think he'll get it. No. Despite
all his baggage, and baggage in terms of peace, his critics would say, well, he's blowing up boats heading out of Venezuela. They're just boats. Well, if they're carrying drugs, they're not just boats.
Right.
Sending the National Guard to American cities. I would say, I'm going to answer my own question. Does he deserve it? Yes. Will he get it? only if the committee said they meet and they say, if we don't give it to him, we're going to look really, really cheesy here. So let's give it to him. That's the only way he's going to get it. All right, let's move on to another topic. This one is about my alma mater, CBS News. And I'm asking you, the listener, the viewer, to be interested, even if CBS News is not a powerful force in American journalism anymore. Even though all the network newscasts are an idea whose time has come and gone. They have a sliver of the audience they had when I wrote Bias 25 years ago. But it's interesting because CBS News has just named Bari Weiss its editor-in-chief. And mainstream journalists inside CBS News and beyond are in a tizzy. Now, why is that? I'm writing a column about it. And in the column, which you'll read next week, I say, why the outrage over Bari Weiss? She supports liberal positions on gay marriage. Weiss herself is married. She's gay and she's married. She's pro-choice. She says she voted for Mitt Romney, but also for liberal Democrats Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Why the outrage? Well, here's a hint. Bari Weiss worked as an editor at the New York Times, and she spoke out against the New York Times woke culture. She says she was called a Nazi and a racist, despite the fact that she voted for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. That wasn't enough. She is, as her own description, I think, if she were to describe herself, would be that she's a disillusioned liberal, not a doctrinaire conservative. There's another reason liberal journalists, certainly inside CBS, are in a tizzy. Bari Weiss will report not to the president of CBS News, but to David Ellison, the CEO of the company that just bought CBS and CBS News. David Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison, who is one of, if not the richest men in the world. And here's the kicker. He's a pal of Donald Trump. Hence the paranoia, the fear, or whatever, that Bari Weiss is going to do whatever Donald Trump says. Well, I don't think she is. But in any event, cool your heels, give her a chance. Let's see what she's going to do. She wrote a letter to the staff of CBS. She said, let's be fair and factual. Let's treat both sides equally. Let's have a variety of voices. How is this controversial? How? John?
Yeah, no, I mean, all those are great points. The big, problem, as you alluded to, was that, again, it wasn't her personal political politics. They're very much in line with, I would say, the mainstream Democratic Party. But the problem is that, when she was at the New York Times and later at the Free Press, she, has given a voice to stories and perspectives that liberal elites, if you want to call them that, aren't comfortable with. So some of those perspectives indeed belong to right-wing individuals who they don't think should be platformed by a mainstream organization. I'm curious, Bernie, do you think that any of this?
Bari Weiss isn't going to put David Duke on or some.
No, not that far, right? No.
What Bari Weiss is calling for is what I called for 30 years ago.
Right.
Bari Weiss was 12 years old when I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about liberal bias in mainstream media, which touched off the media version of World War freaking III. Okay, Bari Weiss was 12 years old. I was calling for more voices in the newsroom. I wasn't calling for a conservative American newsroom. I wasn't calling for a conservative Dan Rather. I was calling for a variety of voices, and that's what she's doing right now. And that somehow is controversial. That speaks not about Bari Weiss. That speaks about the liberal bias that still remains in mainstream journalism and at CBS News, the thinking, the groupthink.
Do you think, Bernie, that some of this, and I know this would be like maybe even a secondary or lower down issue, but you mentioned Bari Weiss was 12 when you wrote that column. She's barely over 40 right now. Do you think there's some sort of sentiment going on too that people who've been around for decades in journalism, that maybe she hasn't paid her dues or that she's too young to be
No,
given this kind of power? Is that
no,
part of it at all?
no, I don't think that has anything to do with it. My second book was called Arrogance, and it was called Arrogance for a reason. Journalists are arrogant. They don't want anybody looking over their shoulder. They like looking down everybody's throat. They'll look down the throat of other politicians, or not of politicians. They'll look down the throat of the military. They'll look down the throat of educators. They'll look down of conservatives. That's for damn sure. They'll look down everybody's throat, even sports figures. They'll look down their throat. But God forbid you take a hard look at journalism, and they don't like that. This is on them. This is their hypocrisy. Bari Weiss, I wish her, she's going to need all the best, and I wish her all the best of luck. And she's going to need it at CBS News, because they don't like anybody coming in and saying, well, let's do it this way. They've done it their way all these years, which was in sometimes the wrong way, not always, but sometimes. But they will circle the wagons before they ever look inward and criticize themselves.
Yeah, no, I think all that's correct. Yes.
Just a very short minute, no more than that, on Letitia James. She was out on the at a rally this week, sounding like Martin Luther King Jr., sounding like a black preacher on a Sunday morning in church. And the message was, what Donald Trump is doing to her is wrong. It's a political indictment. And she won't bend, she won't sway, she won't capitulate. It was really something you'd hear at a church sermon. And she's right. It is a political indictment. It is vengeance. It is vindictiveness. And yes, it is wrong. But coming from Letitia James, that's rich. She started it. She ran for Attorney General of New York State saying, I'm going to get Donald Trump if you elect me. So what Donald Trump did to her is wrong. What she did to Donald Trump is wrong. And you know what? It's got to stop.
No, I agree. And you're right. She is, obviously there's some hypocrisy there on her end. But yeah, we're seeing this now, and it's sort of just blatant out there in the view. You know, everybody can see it. You know, we had that incident. I don't know if that was a couple weeks ago now, where Trump had put something out on Truth Social about Bondi should be prosecuting my people I don't like, basically. And apparently, the Wall Street Journal did some follow up on that. He did think he was sending that to Pam Bondi in a private message. He accidentally put that out there, which was funny because him doing that, I would think, would make Bondi more reluctant to actually then keep going after it. But no, she's going right ahead. She seems to believe that's part of her job, is to somebody, if Trump believes somebody has wronged them, that she thinks it's her job to go after them with the legal attack. So
she will never stand up to Donald Trump.
No,
she won't. I mean, she's not going to be like the prosecutor during Nixon, who the Saturday Night Massacre, when they resigned. She won't stand on principle. She is Donald Trump's toady, and she'll do what he says. Let's move on to a kicker, the last item, which I want to put into perspective. Bad Bunny, I have to smile when I say Bad Bunny, is going to be the headliner at the February Super Bowl in Santa Clarita, California. I know more about Bugs Bunny than I'll ever know about Bad Bunny. But I know, as I wrote in a column this week, that he's a wildly popular rapper. He's from Puerto Rico. He doesn't like Donald Trump. Big surprise there. And he draws a big Latin crowd. So Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, goes on this right-wing podcast, Benny Johnson's podcast, and he says, is there going to be ICE enforcement at the Super Bowl? And without missing a beat, she says, yes, ICE will be all over the Super Bowl. and then Corey Lewandowski, who's one of her chief advisors and Donald Trump's first campaign manager in 2016. Corey Lewandowski weighs in and says, illegal aliens aren't safe anywhere in this country, including at the Super Bowl. Well, when the White House press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, was asked about it, she said she didn't know anything about it, which to me means Donald Trump isn't as crazy as Corey Lewandowski or Kristi Noem. Because if they put ICE agents in full battle gear with guns and masks, rounding up Latino-looking people who are there because they like Bad Bunny, that's a good way to lose the midterm elections next year. If that's what they're trying to do, then send ICE agents out to the Super Bowl, turn off Latino voters, turn off independent voters, turn off some Republican voters, and lose the midterm elections. So I don't make predictions, but I doubt it's going to happen because Donald Trump isn't as crazy as Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski.
Yeah, I think there are a few things, at play here. First, the administration, we know, sort of loves to insert itself into pop culture issues that the government really shouldn't have any business in. We saw them going after late night comedians, going after Taylor Swift a while back. There was a controversy over NFL players in the first term, Saturday Night Live. But I think just as in general, Trump, and this, you're right, Trump hasn't been as into this as one would think. But, a lot of it, I think a lot of it's just to rally the base. I think sometimes.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's
yeah,
what it
well,
is.
I think it's twofold. I think a lot of times it's that. I think it's sometimes to distract from maybe other things going on in the administration because people are just very much. Many more people are tuned into pop culture than they are into politics. And I think if they think they can start some sort of pop culture controversy, that's what people will start talking about. And I think that's probably true. Trump wants to be the biggest story out there. And I think in this case, I think people in his administration know that. And so they sometimes take it upon themselves to sort of charge right at these pop culture issues on their own, perhaps to try and impress Trump. I think that might be what's going on right now with Kristi Noem. I doubt Trump cares about this as much as people underneath him do.
Here's another theory, John. People speak differently when they're in company that they trust. Kristi Noem said that to Benny Johnson, who's a big Trump supporter. I've made speeches to different groups. I try not to tailor it to the particular group. But I know that I'm a lot more comfortable when I'm speaking to friends than when I get booked to make a speech and I realize, holy crap, I'm in San Francisco at a liberal organization type thing. You're just a little more careful when you're with people that don't trust you. She was with Benny Johnson. And he says, is there going to be ICE enforcement? Yeah, there's going to be ICE enforcement. Just shut up.
For those unfamiliar with Benny Johnson, so this is a guy who you said a big Trump supporter, which he is. I would say if you were to find someone who loves Trump more than Trump loves Trump, it would probably be Benny Johnson.
Right,
that guy,
right.
He puts out all kinds of weird fantasies about Donald Trump all the time. He's kind of a nut, actually, but he's very popular. People love, MAGA. People love what he's doing. So he's making a crap load of money. He was actually one of those three podcasters who was supposedly unknownly being paid by Russia a while back when that story came out. So yeah, he's really a piece of work, that guy. But I do want to ask you about something you said though, Bernie, about the midterms. I still don't believe, and he should. You're right. I don't think Trump cares that much about Congress as a whole. I think maybe people in his administration are saying you really should because this could make some things more difficult. But I've never gotten that impression that he does. We're in the second term. Was it 8 months now? He doesn't really have much of a legislative agenda at all. I think he kind of wouldn't mind having a foil like he did in his first term with Pelosi getting power back. And then
here's why I disagree with you. Donald Trump cares most about who and what?
Trump.
Right. That was an easy one, right?
Yes.
And if he contributes with his chaos to the defeat of the Republican Party during next year's midterm elections, his presidency is effectively over, because there'll be Democrats in charge. Well, it'll be over. It'll be over because nothing he wants to get done legislatively will get done. The Democrats will kill it in the House. I don't care if the Republicans had 92 senators. It ain't going anywhere out of the House. And by the way, you know what they likely will, I say likely, let me take that back. What they may very well do, they may very well impeach him again. He's done enough things that will give them ammunition to try it anyway. His presidency is over if he loses the midterm elections. He better get on board with one issue, the economy, because he's underwater in a lot of polls on that. He started out by saying we've got the best economy in the world. And now he's saying, wait till next year, we're going to have a great economy. But you know what happened to Joe Biden when he said Bidenomics is working? Regular folks looked around and said, yeah, I don't think so. And Trump saying the economy is great. Regular folks, blue collar folks who voted for him are saying, I don't think so. Prices never came down. I mean, go to the supermarket. Prices just never came down. Now, I don't know if that was realistic because prices almost never come down anyway, but he said they would. I think he said he'd start working on it on day one. So if the economy isn't better, they're not going to win the midterms. And I say his presidency ends that day.
Yeah, I mean, it is the economy stuff. If he had been a free trade guy like Republicans have always been, I think the economy would be looking a lot better right now. I think a lot of what we're seeing, the slowness, granted, he keeps kind of stepping back from the edge on this tariff stuff. He announces these huge, crazy, percentage tariffs, and then he backtracks, and it creates a lot of uncertainty, which is causing a lot of problems right now. Prices are staying high, I think in large part because of that. But if he just did that, the country would be in much better shape. If he just kind of rolled back the tariffs to even where they were when he came into office, we'd be in a much better situation. But he is so enamored with this trade war stuff that I think in some way, unless the Supreme Court finally they've already, the judiciary's already been handing him all kinds of defeats on this front because a lot of this stuff is, beyond what the power he should have. But if he gets something that just really takes this away, that's actually going to help him. That would stop him from being his own worst enemy on the economy.
Next time you get a call from him to go to lunch or dinner, tell him what you just told our audience, what he should do. I'm sure he'll take your advice to heart.
Oh yeah.
Halloween is coming up. I can't think of a better time than Halloween to tell your friends about us. And you might want to give them a gift subscription for I can't do this with a straight face, for Halloween. We'd sure appreciate it, that's for sure. And if that's the end, John, if you have nothing else, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and tell your friends, tell them to sign up. John and I would appreciate it, and we'd have a bigger audience to talk to, and that's always more fun. So until next time, John, have a great day.
You too, Bernie. Thank you.